Okay, this is an introduction to writing in room 303, and more particularly the work that will happen for us as juniors coming next week on Wednesday. Actually, as a writing assessment next Wednesday, as a typed paper tomorrow. Now again, let's get our nomenclature out of the way we talk. A typed paper, TP, plus minus points on the test sheet. Okay? A writing assessment, part of the reading writing assessment packet, that's a score in the grade book. Got me? All right? So a typed paper, if you hand it in later than tomorrow, let's say, for example, you don't get your typed paper done till Friday, you don't get time to get it done tomorrow, you can still get a few points before the exam. You have to hand in typed papers before the day of the exam, because I can't give you any points on your test sheet after that, right? Because it's the day of the exam. Writing assessment, the deadline rules are different. Remember, you lose percentage points for every day that writing assessment paper is missing. Now, to help you out with this, I'm going to have you write the same paper twice. Does that make sense? We'll work on it tonight, hand it in tomorrow, Friday at the latest, right? Then you'll work on it some more and hand it in as a writing assessment on Wednesday. Got me? Now, I won't always do this, but because we're early in the semester, that's kind of the way I'm going to do it and help you out. Now, the question is, Mr. McGee, what do these papers need to look like physically when I hand one in, and what has to be included? The place to go to get all of that information is page 4 of the day 1 packet, what we call the skeleton guide. Go ahead and put your name there now on that piece of paper and make sure that you're ready to, maybe even extract it. I don't know, some of you will extract it from that packet and you'll put it in the writing section of your notebook. Some of you will just leave it in the master schedule section of your notebook. However you want to do it is fine. The first thing that any paper, typed paper, that you would make, that you would hand in to me, the first thing always is the login information. Guys, this is crucial. I teach over 100 students who are all writing papers 3 and 4 pages long. You do the fast mathematics, okay? I read a lot through the course of a week. I can do it much, much faster if there's certain things on the page that tell me right away what I'm looking at. So login matters. Top right corner, always your first and last name, the class period and what it is, junior English. Makes sense, right? And then make sure that you always tell me what the assignment is and when it is due. This assignment comes due first tomorrow, but then ultimately next week, Wednesday. Okay? By the way, if you want, you can go ahead and just post the Wednesday date even though you're handing it in first for the first time tomorrow. That's fine. And then you're always going to tell me what the assignment is. If it's a page number, you're going to give me that assignment. If it's a typed paper, you're going to use the initials TP. If it's a writing assessment, you're going to use the letters WA. I recommend that for the paper initially, you go ahead and just stick with TP. But if you want, again, to do WA, because it is going to be a writing assessment on Wednesday of next week, that's fine. Okay? What that does for me, immediately it tells me if I'm looking at a paper, whether I'm giving it plus points on the test sheet or whether I'm supposed to give it an actual grade. That's the difference, right? Typed papers, I'm just giving plus points on a test sheet versus an actual grade of a writing assessment. Okay? After the login information, you're going to skip a couple of lines, and then you're going to have 2 titles. 2 titles. Again, you should just be looking at page 4 and just running down through this as I go down through it. Okay? 2 titles. Your first title is your creative title. This title kind of sets up the essay in a creative way. Okay? In a creative way. The second title sits right underneath it in parentheses. This is the title that matters to me. This is the title that you'll cut and paste onto your cover page of a reading writing assessment packet cover page. This we call the academic title. The academic title tells Mr. McGee what you're writing about, what your thesis is. All right? It normally begins with special language. There it is on page 4. Read it for yourself. It normally begins with special language, a discussion of, or an analysis of, or a treatment of. And then there's always kind of two things included in the academic title. One, you always want to make sure that you use the author's name if you're treating a text. Two, you want to actually use the name of the text. Right now in front of you, jot down your academic title for the paper you'll hand in tomorrow. That's why you have that blank sheet of paper out, by the way. We're kind of going to formulate an outline to make it, does that make sense, Mr. Moore? Make it a little bit easier to write this thing tonight. If you want, by the way, you can also create the creative title too if you want to. That way you got both of them, all right? But the academic title is the one I'm going to spend my time with right now. Academic titles, again, in parentheses, start with a certain wording, an analysis of, a treatment of, a discussion of. Then you're going to put the author's last name. What's her name? Chopin. You don't have to use her first name. And then you're going to use the full title of the story, which in this case was called what? Story of an Hour. So your academic title will run something like this: an analysis of 3 messages from Kate Chopin's Story of an Hour. Or you can just say Chopin's Story of an Hour. Okay? Again, what's the assigned thesis? Are we writing about symbolism in Story of an Hour? No, we could, but we're not. Are we writing about metaphor? No, we could, but we're not. What are we writing about? Are we writing about plot conflicts? No, we could, but we're not. What are we writing about? We're working at 2A. We're going to simply identify 3 possible messages or themes from the story, Story of an Hour. Okay? And I need to then know what you're writing on from your academic title. Make sense? After your 2 titles, you then will skip a couple of lines and be ready to start your essay. One other thing. When you type, how do you take care of the title of a text? The easiest way is to italicize it. Put a note to yourself. That way you don't even have to worry about, do I underline it? Do I put quotation marks on it? All you got to do is italicize it. Anytime you use the title, Story of an Hour, italicize it. Okay? Now let's go to the paragraphing. All formal essay writing is built off of paragraphs. A paragraph is a unit of 5 to 7 sentences constructed around a single idea. All right? Did you hear what I just said? All of the paragraphs in your essay must be at least 5 sentences long. Don't hand in any 3-sentence paragraphs for a paper, okay? Does that make sense? The paragraphing. 5 to begin with. As juniors, we'll begin to move beyond this traditional 5-paragraph essay theme, but we still need to make sure we can prove we know how to do it, right? 5 paragraphs. Paragraph number 1 we call what? Our intro paragraph. Paragraphs 2, 3, and 4 we call what? Those are our paragraphs of body. We also will refer to them as simply POVs. Short for what? Points of validation. To validate means to what? Means to prove. Means to prove. Okay? And then what's our 5th paragraph? That's our conclusion paragraph. You got it. That's our conclusion paragraph. All right? Let's talk through the intro paragraph real quick. In the intro paragraph, we got several things we're going to do. 1, see, you're following the skeleton guide right now, aren't you? 1, you're going to make sure that you have a good first line. It will not be your thesis. Hello, don't hand in a paper to me tomorrow. The very first sentence says there are 3 messages in Chopin's Story of an Hour. Don't do that. You'll get your paper jacked. Okay? No, we'll be working instead with a creative first line. Some students like a quote, either from the text or from somewhere else. Learn how to use quote.com or other kind of quote sources online to try and find a good inspiring quote or a quote that relates in some way to this text, to the topic, or whatever, all right? Or you can always just, choose one from the story, or you can just be creative and come up with your own first line. What else do we got to do in the intro paragraph? Well, we're going to provide what we call a brief plot summary. We're going to name the text. We're going to name the full name of the text, and we're going to name the author. Okay? In the intro paragraph. We're going to give a brief plot summary. Kate Chopin's Story of an Hour is a story of a woman who thinks her husband is dead. At first she's sad, then she's happy. He comes home, and she dies from sadness. And that's just a brief plot summary. That's what we mean by a real brief plot summary. What else do we do in the intro paragraph? What else does it tell you there in the skeleton guide? We want to make sure that if we're using any special terms, we define them. In this paper, I guess we don't really have to do that very much, right? Anything else? Defining our terms if we need to. Did I miss anything there? We'll get there. Now that's the last sentence of the first paragraph. Let's talk about it. The last sentence of the first paragraph is our thesis sentence. Write it down. This is huge. Circle it, star it on page 4 of your skeleton guide. Your thesis is the last sentence of your first paragraph. This is the sentence that tells us what you're writing about. Couple of quick observations. 1, do not ask this in the form of a question. What are 3 messages from Chopin's Story of an Hour? Question mark. Way wrong answer. That is not a thesis. A thesis is stated, not asked. So, we want to make sure that we actually state what we're doing in the paper. Second observation. Don't say, in this essay, I will discuss 3 messages from Story of an Hour. I know we did that when we were in 7th grade, but we aren't in 7th grade anymore. We want our writing to sound a bit more sophisticated than that. First of all, you're the one writing the essay. So there's no point in saying, in this essay, I will. Just simply say, there are 3 important messages in Chopin's Story of an Hour. Okay? Make sure in your thesis that you definitely mention the author's last name and the full title of the story. Got me? Everybody groovy with this? That last sentence, put a note to yourself. That last sentence is what you will cut and paste right onto your cover page for the reading, writing, assessment packets. Okay? Everybody groovy with this? All right, let's talk about the body paragraphs. 3 of them. POV 1, POV 2, POV 3. The first sentence of those body paragraphs will be your topic sentences for those paragraphs. Your 3 POVs will be the first sentences of those body paragraphs. Okay? You're going to make sure that you are providing then in each one of those one message from the story. Okay? One message from the story for each one. Make a note to yourself. When you, in each POV, make a point, you must use text to validate. Write this down. This is huge. You must use text to validate. What does that mean?
Quote.
Got to use quotes from the story. Outstanding. Quotes or references. Right? References can also be there. Okay? Now later, as juniors, we'll be using lots of what we call external validation. That's when we're quoting from some other place other than the story itself. And then we have to have a works cited page. We'll talk more about that as we kind of get into our junior year. All right? For tomorrow's paper, all you need is what we call internal validation. Validation that comes from only Story of an Hour. I don't need you going online and doing research about the story or anything like that. Not for this paper. Finally, your conclusion paragraph. You do 3 things. 1, you restate your thesis. 2, you re-summarize your primary points of validation. 3, we do this thing called extending beyond the thesis. We want to finish our paragraph by saying something interesting that wasn't a part of our thesis. The first 2 are the ones that matter for tomorrow's paper. The third one, if you know how to do it, do it. And if you don't worry, we'll teach it to you later. All right? Questions, concerns, comments? We all kind of understand what we're doing in terms of the form of the paper. A couple of quick observations. We always work double-spaced. Write this down. We always work double-spaced. We always work with 10-point Times New Roman. So we all are in the same font, 10 point, don't go 11, don't go 12. Saves paper this way. I know some of us like to be in 14-point fonts, so that way it makes the paper look longer. Way wrong answer. We're not in 8th grade anymore. Okay? I don't grade your papers on how long they are. How do I score your papers? By how well you follow that skeleton guide you're looking at on page 4. You do those things, you're going to get a good grade every time, right? Okay? Always make sure that you're double spacing, working in 10-point Times New Roman. Make sure you italicize any kind of story title. Now, Mr. Beck's asked this question. It's a good one. Mr. McGee, through my paper, after, in the intro paragraph, after I use the full title of the story, can I just abbreviate the title of the story to one word? You bet. You bet. So you don't have to say story of an hour over and over again. You can just say story. But each time, make sure it is what? Italicized. You got it. Italicized. Question, Mr. Beck. That's a really good question. Mr. McGee, are we going to have time at the beginning of class to print? Normally, no. Normally, no. I'm ready to start right away. But I would say for tomorrow, yes. I would say for tomorrow, yes. Of course, you're a class that happens right after orange period. Mr. McGee's obvious question is going to be, you couldn't find 3 minutes to go print during orange period, right? See, so it makes sense. So you guys are obviously in good fortune here right after orange period, huh? All right, let's spend now just a few minutes. I'm going to help you outline this. Is that okay? I'm going to help you outline this real quickly. I want you to jot down what you consider to be 3 possible messages from Story of an Hour. Uh-oh, where might I go to look for an idea? Like, I might go to my annotations real quick. Where am I going to look on my annotations? I'm going to look at 2A, aren't I? Messages, themes, right? I should have 3 of them already written down. Is that right? Okay, let's go to work then. We're going to spend a little time, and we're going to talk through possible ideas for this paper, all right?